there are moments in life that defy explanation, experiences so profound, so utterly outside the realm of our known reality, that they shatter the very foundations of what we believe to be true. These are the moments that awaken us, forcing us to confront the vast, terrifying, and utterly magnificent unknown that hums just beneath the surface of our everyday lives. Today, I want to share a story that begins with such a moment, a 9-second glimpse into a reality far stranger than fiction, captured by a simple, standard-issue helmet camera. Imagine a battlefield, a scene of chaos and kinetic energy, suddenly frozen. Not just paused, but asterisk. Suspended asterisk. That's precisely what a video, now classified and locked away in the deepest recesses of a secure server, depicts. For 9 unbelievable seconds, the world ceased its motion. Dust motes, kicked up by unseen forces, hung like countless tiny diamonds in the air. Shrapnel, mid-flight, seemed to shimmer, caught in an invisible amber, and bullets, lethal projectiles, designed for speed and destruction, were rendered utterly motionless, their trajectories frozen, their purpose momentarily forgotten. This impossible tableau is recorded by the helmet camera of Corporal James Riley. A routine patrol, a standard piece of equipment, and then this. The footage begins like any other. The rhythmic jostle of a soldier on foot, the familiar grit of an urban landscape under a desert sun. Then, abruptly, the world stops. The audio cuts out, replaced by an eerie, profound silence that seems to press in from all directions, even through the digital recording. The image, once fluid, becomes a still photograph, but one that breathes with an unnerving, hyperreal clarity. You see it all. The strained expression on a comrade's face, a bird, wings outstretched, caught forever in an ascent, a plume of smoke, its tendrils perfectly defined, reaching for a sky that has forgotten how to move. It's a breathtaking, terrifying vision of a universe holding its breath. But the most chilling aspect of those 9 seconds isn't the frozen world. But what asterisk? DIDN single quotes. T. Asterisk freeze. While everything else was held captive by this temporal distortion, something moved. A dark, almost humanoid shadow, lacking any discernible features beyond its profound blackness, began to glide across the street. It wasn't walking, not running, but flowing. A ripple in the fabric of a frozen reality. Its movement was deliberate, unhurried, as if it existed on a different plane of existence, utterly untouched by the temporal anomaly that had gripped the world around it, and it moved directly towards the camera, towards Corporal Riley. What makes this footage even more unsettling is Riley's reaction. In the frozen frame, none of his comrades appeared to register the temporal distortion. They are statues, caught in their last moment of motion. But Riley is different. The camera, fixed to his helmet, shows a sudden, jerky movement. He stumbles, a slight, almost imperceptible shift in balance, and then his head snaps up. His gaze, even through the grainy lens, is unmistakably fixed on the position where the shadow moved. He wasn't frozen. He perceived it. Sa u italiano? Later, in a debriefing that felt more like an interrogation from a science fiction novel, Riley struggled to articulate what he had experienced. He spoke of an overwhelming sense of being watched, a heavy, suffocating pressure that descended upon him in those 9 seconds. He described it as if the air itself had solidified, pressing against his chest, making it impossible to breathe. And he was certain, with a conviction that chilled everyone in the room, that the dark figure had taken notice of him. That its movement towards his position wasn't random, but deliberate. A silent acknowledgement across the temporal divide. The footage, once discovered during a routine review, sent shockwaves through the highest echelons of military intelligence. Initially dismissed as a digital glitch or a sophisticated hoax, the video underwent exhaustive analysis. Every frame was scrutinized, every pixel examined, and the findings were perhaps even more disturbing than the visual evidence itself. System log analysis, delving into the very timestamps and data packets of the recording, revealed something impossible. These 9 seconds did not exist in system time. They were, according to the cold, hard data, an anomaly that occurred. Outside the flow of time, a temporal bubble that began and ended without leaving a trace on the conventional timeline. It was as if a piece of reality had been snipped out, played on a different track, and then seamlessly reinserted, leaving a phantom recording behind. The implications were staggering. The footage was immediately locked for special access, accessible only to a select few with the highest clearances. Corporal James Riley, the unwitting witness to the impossible, was removed from active duty. The official reason was stress-related leave, but everyone knew it was a thinly veiled attempt to contain the unconscious. Riley himself found no peace. The experience had etched itself onto his very soul. He began to experience recurring dreams, vivid and persistent, of the dark shadow. Each night, it would appear, just as it had in that frozen street, moving with that same eerie grace. But in his dreams, it wasn't just moving across the street. It was getting closer. The video ends, leaving us with a profound silence and a multitude of unsettling questions. What kind of entity can move when time itself is brought to a standstill? What forces are at play beyond our comprehension, capable of distorting the very fabric of existence? And if such beings can pierce the veil of our reality, if they can traverse moments that simply don't exist for us, how often do they pass unnoticed? How many times have we been but a frozen tableau in their path, utterly oblivious to the silent, dark figures that glide through our suspended moments, perhaps even taking notice of Asterisk? Asterisk, the story of Corporal James Riley and his 9-second video is just the beginning. It's a crack in the facade of our understanding, a whisper from the void, and it leaves us to wonder what happens when the shadow finally arrives. The official pronouncements offered no solace. Stress-related leave, they said, a clinical term designed to sanitize the inexplicable. But for Corporal James Riley, there was no escaping the truth of what he had witnessed, or the chilling implications of what continued to haunt him. The world outside the secure facility where his footage was now locked away moved on, oblivious. But Riley's world had fractured. Removed from active duty, his life became a quiet, solitary confinement. The camouflaged uniform was replaced by civilian clothes, the camaraderie of his squad by the sterile silence of his own thoughts. He was a man adrift, anchored only by the impossible memory of those 9 seconds. The experts, with their complex algorithms and temporal theories, could only confirm the anomaly. They could dissect the data, analyze the light particles, measure the distortion in the very fabric of space-time. But they could not, and would not, explain the shadow. And then came the dreams. At first, they were faint echoes, fragmented images of that frozen street, the suspended dust motes, the impossibly still bullets, the wide-eyed terror on his comrades' faces, all locked in a tableau of suspended animation. But in every dream, the shadow was there. It wasn't just a fleeting impression. It was a presence, a deliberate movement across the street, exactly as it had appeared in the footage. But the dreams began to change, to deepen, to intensify with a terrifying precision. Each night, the scenario would replay, but the shadow wouldn't just cross the street. It would pause, its formless mass coalescing into something undeniably humanoid, something that radiated an ancient, cold intelligence. And then it would turn. Its gaze, though unseen, was felt. A crushing weight, a profound, primal awareness that he was being observed, scrutinized. Asterisk. Known. Asterisk. Riley would wake in a cold sweat, his heart hammering against his ribs, the taste of metallic fear in his mouth. The feeling of being watched didn't dissipate with the dawn. It lingered, a phantom pressure on the back of his neck, a subtle shift in the air when he was alone. He would check the locks on his doors, scan the empty corners of his apartment, his mind racing through the impossible. Was it just a trauma response? A vivid manifestation of his subconscious grappling with the unbelievable? Or was the shadow, in some unfathomable way, truly getting closer? The medical professionals, briefed only on the stress-related aspects of his case, prescribed sedatives and therapy. They spoke of PTSD, of the brain's struggle to process extreme events, but they couldn't explain the chilling consistency of his nightmares, or the undeniable sense of proximity that grew with each passing night. How could a dream entity feel so real, so present? He tried to talk about it once, With a therapist, he described the frozen world, the suspended bullets, the unmoving dust. He spoke of the shadow, its silent, deliberate movement. The therapist listened patiently, her eyes reflecting a practiced empathy. But her words were clinical, reassuring, dissecting his experience into symptoms and coping mechanisms. She couldn't see the shadow. She couldn't feel its presence. And Riley quickly learned that some truths were too vast, too terrifying for conventional understanding. He found himself retreating, isolating himself. How could he explain to anyone that he had seen a crack in reality, that he had witnessed something move when time itself had ceased? How could he convey the terrifying beauty of a moment suspended, the chilling horror of being the only one aware, the only one observed? His experience had set him apart, placing him on a precipice between what humanity understood and what it desperately tried to ignore. The questions that haunted the secure facility where his footage lay locked away now echoed in Riley's mind with an unbearable intensity. What asterisk? Is asterisk? This entity that defies the very laws of physics. What power does it wield to stop the relentless march of time? And if it can move through moments that don't exist for us, how often has it passed through our lives? A silent, dark ripple in the fabric of existence, utterly unnoticed. The system log analysis, which declared those 9 seconds to have occurred outside the flow of time, haunted him most. It wasn't just that time stopped. It was that asterisk, his asterisk time. Those 9 seconds of his perception existed in a separate dimension of reality. He wasn't just an observer. He was, for a fleeting moment, a unique anomaly within an anomaly. And the shadow, he believed with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, had perceived asterisk. Him asterisk in return. It wasn't just passing through a frozen tableau. It had actively taken notice of the one flickering consciousness in an otherwise motionless world. He started to sketch, compulsively, not of the shadow itself, for its form was too fluid, too undefined to capture, but of the asterisk feeling. Asterisk it evoked. Dark, swirling masses. Lines of pressure, the sense of a vast, silent eye. He began to research, devouring every obscure text he could find on temporal mechanics, on quantum entanglement, on ancient myths of beings that existed beyond human perception. He sought answers not just for the sake of knowledge, but for survival. If the shadow was indeed getting closer in his dreams, what would happen when it finally arrived in his waking world? The thought was a constant companion, a cold knot in his stomach. He was no longer just a soldier. He was a sentinel, standing guard over a truth too profound, too terrifying for the world to bear. He was the one who had seen, the one who had felt, the one who was now being watched in return. And with each passing day, with each unsettling dream, he knew, with a chilling certainty, that he was running out of time. The shadow was no longer just a distant entity in a 9-second video. It was a looming presence, a growing inevitability that threatened to consume his reality. And the question was no longer asterisk if asterisk it would arrive, but asterisk. When asterisk, that chilling certainty became the bedrock of James Riley's existence. Every waking moment was a preparation, every dream a rehearsal for an encounter he couldn't possibly fathom. The research he'd compulsively undertaken, a desperate scramble through forgotten lore and cutting-edge physics, had only deepened the abyss of his understanding. He devoured theories of parallel dimensions, of chronal mechanics, of entities that existed as pure consciousness, unbound by the crude constraints of linear time. He found fragments, whispers in ancient texts, scientific papers that brushed against the impossible, all hinting at a reality far more intricate and terrifying than any human mind was equipped to handle. He stopped trying to explain it to anyone. The blank stares, the polite suggestions of stress leave, the subtle shift in their eyes. He knew they saw a man unraveling, but he wasn't unraveling. He was asterisk, redash knitting, asterisk himself, stitch by painful stitch, into a new form, one capable of perceiving the threads of existence that others couldn't. He was becoming an antenna, finely tuned to a frequency that humanity had long since forgotten, or perhaps deliberately ignored. The dreams intensified, losing their dreamlike quality. They were no longer vague, shifting images, but crystalline, hyperreal experiences. He would find himself back on that frozen street, The dust motes suspended like microscopic jewels. The bullet trails etched against the sky. But now, the shadow wasn't just moving. It was asterisk. Observing. Asterisk. Its form, though still undefined, felt more substantial. Its presence a crushing weight that stole the air from his lungs, even in his sleep. And in these dreams, it would always asterisk, draw closer. Not with speed, but with an inexorable, terrifying patience. He could feel the subtle shift in the air, the pressure building, the silent hum of an alien intelligence focusing on him. One night, he woke with a gasp, the heavy pressure from his dream lingering in his chest, a phantom limb of fear. He sat bolt upright in bed, heart hammering against his ribs, convinced it was there, in the room. The shadows in his bedroom seemed deeper, coalescing into forms that shifted at the periphery of his vision. He gripped his blanket, knuckles white, straining his eyes against the darkness. Nothing. Yet, the feeling of being watched was overwhelming, a cold current flowing through his veins. He knew then that the dreams were not just dreams. They were an extension, a premonition, perhaps even a asterisk. Tether asterisk. The shadow was no longer content to simply approach in his subconscious. It was probing, stretching its ethereal tendrils into his waking reality. He began to see it, fleetingly. In the daylight, a flicker of movement in his peripheral vision, a deeper shade of black against a dark corner, a momentary distortion in the fabric of his perception. He'd spin around, his heart leaping, but there would be nothing. Just the mundane world, oblivious. He questioned his sanity. Of course, who wouldn't? But deep down a profound and terrifying certainty remained. This wasn't madness, this was asterisk. Contact. Asterisk. The system log analysis, which had declared those 9 seconds to have occurred outside the flow of time, now held a new, chilling significance. It wasn't just that asterisk time asterisk had stopped, it was that asterisk, he asterisk. James Riley had stepped momentarily beyond its confines. He had been an anomaly within an anomaly, a conscious observer in a moment of cosmic suspension, and in that unique nexus, he had been perceived. The shadow hadn't just moved asterisk through asterisk time. It had moved asterisk, outside asterisk of it, and he, for a fleeting moment, had joined it there. This wasn't a curse, it was a revelation. It meant he wasn't merely a witness. He was a bridge. He was the point of contact, the singular human consciousness that had intersected with something profoundly non-human, non-temporal. The heavy pressure he felt, the sense of being watched, wasn't necessarily malevolent. It was attention. The intense, focused attention of an entity operating on a completely different plane of existence, now aware of a flicker of life in its hitherto solitary journey through suspended reality. He stopped fighting the fear. He stopped trying to escape the dreams. Instead, he began to observe them, to engage, however passively. In his dreams, as the shadow drew closer, he no longer just stumbled in terror. He tried to hold his ground. He tried to asterisk. See. Asterisk. It. To understand its form, its intent. He focused not on the fear, but on the profound mystery, the sheer impossibility of it all. What if this wasn't an invasion, but an awakening? What if the heavy pressure was simply the immense weight of a different kind of reality pressing against his own, seeking communion? The final dream was different. He was on the frozen street again. But this time he wasn't alone. His comrades were there, suspended, as always, but he felt a strange calm. The shadow was closer than ever, its form almost filling his field of vision, a vortex of pure, dimensionless dark. He felt the familiar pressure, but it wasn't crushing. It was resonant, and in that moment, he didn't stumble. He stood firm. He looked not asterisk. At asterisk, this shadow, but asterisk, into asterisk it, seeking not an answer, but a connection. And then a profound shift occurred, not in the shadow, but within asterisk. Him asterisk. The pressure didn't increase. It asterisk equalized asterisk. He felt a sudden, dizzying expansion of his own consciousness, a sense of seeing beyond, of understanding patterns that had always been hidden. The world didn't just freeze. It became a tapestry, its threads visible, its underlying structure suddenly clear. The shadow wasn't an entity with a singular form. It was a ripple, a current in the river of existence, a traveler between moments, a silent observer of all that asterisk is asterisk and asterisk is not asterisk. He woke, not with a gasp of fear, but with a quiet, profound sense of peace. The recurring dreams had stopped. The phantom pressure was gone. But something had changed. He saw the world differently. The hurried pace of life, the anxieties, the trivialities, they seemed to recede, replaced by a deeper appreciation for the intricate dance of existence. He felt a quiet strength, a resilience forged in the crucible of the impossible. The 9-second video, locked away in some secure vault, remained a mystery to the world, a glitch, an anomaly, a digital phantom. But for James Riley, it was a gateway. It had shown him that reality was far grander, far more mysterious, and infinitely more interconnected than anyone dared to imagine. It had taught him that sometimes the greatest threats are simply the greatest truths misunderstood. What could move when time stops? Perhaps not an entity seeking to harm, but a consciousness merely passing through, on its own incomprehensible journey. And how often do such entities pass unnoticed? Perhaps constantly, their silent ripples going unheard, unseen, unless, by some fluke of fate, a single human consciousness, like James Riley's, momentarily steps outside the flow, and truly sees asterisk. His life was no longer about fearing the shadow, but about understanding the light it cast on the universe. He was still a soldier, in a way, but his battlefield was now the vast, uncharted territory of perception. He carried the burden of knowledge, yes, but also the profound gift of expanded awareness. He had glimpsed the impossible, and in doing so, he had learned not to fear the unknown, but to recognize its infinite potential to reveal new dimensions of existence and new depths within ourselves. For sometimes, the greatest inspiration lies not in what we know, but in the boundless wonder of what we are yet to discover, and the courage to look directly into the profound, beautiful darkness that holds it all.